Well, for more on the state of the U.S. economy, we turn now to Jerry Webman, chief economist at OppenheimerFunds. Welcome, Jerry. Always good to have you here on Fast Forward.
Great to be here.
What can the president do at this point, short term, that's going to have the biggest impact on the economy? Is it about fiscal stimulus?
You know, let's put aside the idea that there's a lot that the president or the Congress or the central bank can do to make an economy that's in the process, on a long process of deleveraging, quick jump start. We got to put those ideas aside. What we'd like to see avoid happen is any kind of severe fiscal restraint, stringency in the short term. And that, I think, we've got to deal with. So the most important thing the president can do, I think, is to give us this medium-term plan that allows us to maintain some amount of stimulus in the near term, but tells us how we're going to deal with a 10-year problem of reducing our debt burden. A very tough assignment. You know, it is making the car bigger on the outside than the inside in some way, or bigger on the inside than the outside in some ways. But that's what we've got to accomplish now.
What stimulus has the biggest impact? Is this extending on unemployment benefits? Is this writing out a check to every taxpayer? What specifically is going to have the biggest impact?
Well, you know, there's everybody who has a political view has a different answer to that question. Economists have been studying that problem at least since the late 1930s, and I don't know that there's a consensus answer. We know that some amount of tax relief helps, but tax relief tends to get saved. We know that some amount of infrastructure investment helps, but a lot of that tends to go into either pork barrel or it doesn't get actually spent until things are going again. So we need something better constructed than the redevelopment or whatever they called that plan, the stimulus plan of the spring of 2009. That was not I think everybody admits that was not a well-constructed program. So we need something better than that. But, you know, it is, as they admitted when they brought it out, very uncertain territory.
Jerry, were you surprised that Standard & Poor's downgraded U.S. debt?
Well, I wasn't surprised on that Friday night because Standard & Poor's had told us exactly what they expected. They wanted a political process or political conclusion that looked very different from what we'd seen the week before. So if you just read what S&P said on their mid-July, July 14th warning, it was obvious what they were going to do. You know, so no, I was not surprised.
Do you think Washington has heard the warning? I mean, I do know they're investigating Standard & Poor's for the rationale behind making the decision, but at the same time, it certainly was a shot over the bow, if you will.
Well, yeah, investigating the rating agencies, and of course, congressional hearings opened the week before this happened. Investigating the rating agencies and understanding the fiscal problem are two very different things. Everybody says they understand it. The problem is people, I think, are very stuck in a hole on kind of unitary solutions to what we have to do over the long term. And in fact, it's going to take some of this and some of that to straighten out the budgetary problem. So I think people know it. It's just, you know, we're running for office right now much more than we are trying to worry about what the debt burden is going to be 7-8 years from now. And that's unfortunate. It's the nature of democracy. Democracy is messy, and that's what we're seeing.
How likely do you think it is that we do go into a double dip recessionary period?
Yeah, I think everybody has to admit, I would have put it much lower 3 weeks ago than I do now. This is a fragile economy. It's fragile because we're in the process of deleveraging. That means that the usual kinds of monetary stimulus don't help very much. So we're very susceptible to some kind of outside shock, exogenous shock, as we like to say.
Perhaps from Europe.
Maybe from Europe, maybe political events in Europe, maybe another spike in energy prices. So we've got to put it, you know, I think most economists are putting this probability somewhere around a third right now. Of course, if you tell me over the next 15 years, I'll tell you it's 100%. So everybody says they give you a percent, but they don't tell you exactly when. I don't think the rest of this year, barring some kind of major natural human commodity shock, I don't think it's likely the U.S. goes into recession during the remainder of 2011. But we could always mess it up.
Right. Well, it's been a few years of black swans, one after the other. So, you know, I can see why you hesitate on making a specific call, because we've seen one of those outlying events happen pretty much every month this year. Okay, Jerry, we got to end it there. Thank you so much for joining us.